Five Nights at Freddy's, but they're moving. And what else?
What do you mean, what else?
Well, is there anything else that happens in this game besides being able to see you move? Hold your pitchforks. This isn't about to be a video where all I do is complain. At least, I don't think it is. I haven't scripted further than this yet. But I am going into this with the intent of genuinely critiquing the mechanics of FNAF in real time and trying not to focus too much on subjectivity. Did I like the game? Not that much. Honestly, I had my issues with it. But I'd appreciate you taking the time to listen to my points before you assume anything. Being honest up front, I personally couldn't beat Night 5 at the time of scripting this, so I apologize if I get anything wrong about intricacies of the mechanics for any further nights, though I did have a good friend willing to beat those for me and give me the footage. I tried to study up, though.
Here's an actual customer out here. What's
best way to remake Five Nights at Freddy's?
Wouldn't you like to know, Weather Boy?
Where are your parents?
Alright, so just what is FNAF in real time? Well, we're just gonna call it IRT because that is easier. Released on December 23rd, IRT was developed by Real Time Studio. Guess they really like this particular game of their lineup. The studio is currently making several other games, including the FNAF movie game as well as Pinata Puppy World, but I'm not gonna go in depth on those, they're not our focus. But they will tie into some points farther along. IRT's development was led by Tarin, who prior to this was primarily known for music and 3D animations. Originally, the game was planned to just be a mod of the original Five Nights at Freddy's, with the animatronics actually moving on the cameras. But it was later decided to expand the project into a full game. The game's development was moved to Unity at some point, and I'm guessing it was when it transitioned to being a full solo game. Despite how it may appear, IRT isn't just a remake of the original FNAF. It's meant to be a pseudo-sequel, telling a different story that takes place 10 years after the original. The location is on the verge of shutting down, and you play as Donovan Sheehan instead of Michael Afton. Donovan takes the job and tries to uncover secrets in the location, but someone else seems determined to erase the evidence. Originally, IRT was first revealed in August 2023, but a demo for it did not release until July 2024. This demo had some problems. Some problems that very quickly spiraled out of control and nearly resulted in the game being cancelled completely. The demo featured Night 1 and the eagerly awaited 6-hour mode, a mode meant to simulate how it might actually feel to spend a real shift at Freddy's. However, there's probably a good reason the endgame is not just this mode. To quote AstralSpiff, sitting in the FNAF 1 office for 6 hours kinda blows. I mean, it's essentially working a boring security job in game form. I haven't tried it yet. I probably will. But why would I want a repeat of how I spend my afternoons but at night and with the addition of evil robots instead of gnomes? Anyway, so how was that demo? Well, when the demo was slated to come out, a group of creators received early access to it in order to compete to be the first to complete the 6-hour mode. Among these was AstralSpiff, whose video I will be using as the primary reference for how the demo worked, because I cannot find a download for it. So, on starting the 6-hour mode, you get 2000% power. But as the night begins to increase in difficulty about half an hour in, Spiff notices that after some quick maths, it doesn't seem like there's gonna be enough power to last the entire night. If you can lose 200% in that first bit just by idling with nothing going on and nobody moving, 200% every 30 minutes equates to you losing power at 5 AM if you do absolutely nothing at all the whole night. I'm bad with mental math, so I also wrote that down to make sure I had the time right. And with more specific math applied, you lose 1% power every 10 seconds. So that equals you losing power at about 5:35 AM if nobody ever shows up and makes you use power. So logically, Spiff comes to the conclusion that the night is impossible in its current form. So he brings it up to the devs and is told a fix will come by morning. A fix does come by morning, but that's just the start of the strange happenings that are to come. The impossible power stuff was not the only problem the 6-hour mode ended up having. Turns out, the animatronics themselves don't even have enough battery to last the night, and so they'll randomly stop doing anything as the night progresses. Their AI breaks one by one, and eventually you're just left alone with no threats. They're supposed to increase in AI levels as the hours pass, with Tarin even having given the exact levels they use and when they use them, so obviously them just giving up isn't intentional. But honestly, I don't blame them for missing this occurring. I mean, I wouldn't want to spend longer than a standard office shift testing 6-hour mode in the game and eyeing every animatronic individually to make sure for that whole 6 hours they're behaving. With such a long and tedious game mode, you're probably not going to catch everything before release. So, how did they fix the impossible power stuff? They increased it to 2100% power, still losing 1% per roughly 10 seconds. That's still impossible. With Spiff's calculations, you need at least 2160% to beat the night. Now, you're just gonna run out at roughly 5:50 AM doing nothing. Power out sequence is never gonna last 10 whole minutes, so you are still definitely screwed. The 6-hour mode wasn't impossible though if you used the hourly checkpoints. With checkpoints enabled, the power used 100% to start and then decimal points to decrease. Hourly checkpoints mode definitely seemed to be more fleshed out than the standard mode though. Even with a strange bug where restarting the checkpoints mode would always put you at 37.49%. So, how is 6-hour mode in the full release though? Well, I tried it. Put an update here on if I beat it or not, future me. I'm coming! I'm coming! Oh my god, wait. No. Hey Bonnie, what do you think of this? And I can't believe I... In the full release, to play 6-hour mode, all you gotta do is beat Night 3 in story mode to unlock the Fazbear Employment console in the minimap alongside Night 4. From the FEC, you can access challenge modes, and one of these is 6-hour mode. Now, instead of an obscene amount of power, you get the percentage decimal amount you got in hourly checkpoint mode before, and there is a phone call. A very useless phone call with a lot of stuttering that lasts for 7 minutes and ends with a joke that would have been funny had they not tried to explain the punchline like 2 seconds later.
Make sure you check those cameras, don't let the animatronics in, and have a very fun and exciting 6 hours of doing nothing but this. That's right, you're spending 6 hours doing this. Remember that. 6 whole hours at Freddy's. This is what you chose to do. Sitting down for 6 hours at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. I do not know why the last portion of the script they give me is so aggressive. It really points out the fact that you're doing this for 6 hours. It's quite like, it's weird. So I apologize for that. I hope you have a nice night.
Also, I don't think there is a checkpoints mode anymore. Because of the demo's issues and some in-progress bug fixes that were taking longer than people wanted, the developers, namely Tarin from what I can find, were sent horrific content on their personal accounts. This made them decide to cancel the project and hand it to other people to escape the harassment, which is understandable. In no way is this an acceptable way to treat developers making a free product out of passion for a series, no matter what your feelings on them are. Anyone who took part in this honestly does not deserve to be called a FNAF fan, or hell, a fan of anything close to any of us. We don't claim you, get lost. And if I see anybody ranting and raving in the comments with anger related to anything but valid points about the game, aka if you're gonna start spewing personal hate to people involved, you will be hidden from this channel and your comments removed. Just a heads up. You can dislike something without being a hateful person. These developers are new and deserve the chance to improve without being dragged face first through the mud for daring to make a single mistake. Perhaps they were too ambitious this time, but that's how you learn what you can and can't do. Alright, enough on the demo, let's get into the actual game. When you boot the game for the first time, you're greeted with a cutscene reminiscent of the in-between night cutscenes you see in FNAF 2. There's no way you'd know who you are yet, but it's important to note the facial seams in the mask here and the voice of the viewer. They'll be important later in the plot. Here is one of the few times Brother, the paper plate guy, ever appears in-game. On arrival, he's immediately accused of being behind the murders of the children who went missing in the pizzeria, and the disappearance of the viewer's daughter. All he says in response to this is simply, quote, alive, flipping the viewer's previous words of, no one's getting out of this. Brother's implying that you, the player, are dead. You didn't get out of this alive. Then, Bonnie and Chica turn to face the player before the scene ends. This likely isn't a dream, actually, more on that later. Right after this, it's revealed that this version of FNAF takes place 10 years after the original game, by a series of newspaper clippings revealing how things have gone downhill over the years, alongside text that gets increasingly more unhinged as more clippings are shown. Here, let me read a few. Free pizza! Pizzas in bulk, 50 to 60 pounds of pizza. Serious replies only. Duck-seeking lemonade stand. Serious offers only, no jokes. No saying no. I want grapes. Want a cube? I want a cube. I would also like to tell you about this new store I found. Call me 8489008387. Where's Walfred? Me, it's me. Feeling nerdy? Then you needy to touch grass. Like, come on, get your life together. Call now. Casey, please, if you're reading this, I love you. It must be known, and the text is cropping it out. Don't listen to them. We can be happy. Casey, no. Casey, no. Casey, please. I am trapped inside this newspaper. I am the one that's breaking. Help me. I can't do this. Help! After a kerfuffle with the management and subsequent fail of the grand reopening for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, the new and accident-safe small location reboots and returns to FNAF. to Freddy's. Haha. When you do finally get into the game, you've got two options. Either start a new game or check out the minimap, although the game isn't enthusiastic about you doing that yet. It appears to be derivative of the minigames seen later in the series between nights, but since we can't do much here yet, let's start a new game. When everything starts off, you're plopped right into the office as you're used to it in the original game, with a few differences. The papers in the back move, the fan's on a spin cycle, and the biggest, there's no phone call. The game definitely expects you to know how to play Five Nights at Freddy's already, and honestly, considering what it is, there's not really anything wrong with that in my opinion. Why rehash the same phone call that everybody's heard already and will more than likely slam the mute button on? The mechanics of the first few nights are pretty much unchanged from the original game, except for one huge difference. When the animatronics begin to move, which is pretty soon given there's no phone call to delay them, they can break their original pathing rules. By that, for example, I mean Bonnie isn't restricted to just showing up at your left door. And Bonnie leaves first, so we can see that pretty much immediately. What's interesting about Bonnie in this game is he kind of breaks the real-time gimmick sometimes. You might just see him snap teleport into a room, which is a funny thing to have included as it's jokingly been made canon that Bonnie does not abide by the laws of physics. The same rule breakage applies to Chica as well, minus the chaos control abilities. She can show up at your left when in the original FNAF she could only appear at the right. I just realized I should have clarified that normally Bonnie would only be at the left and her at the right for anybody watching who doesn't know FNAF inside out like us autistics do. When either one does eventually get to your door though, it's not gonna be like before. Honestly, this is a change I'm not a big fan of. You will not see the animatronics at your door. Instead, you'll only see them blocking the light and causing the entirety of the outside to be dark. You'll only see a bit of them. For example, in Bonnie's case, his feet. The two of them, by that I mean Bonnie and Chica, had their creepy factor improved by their appearances in the doors and windows. With them not showing up there anymore, I don't know, they feel a lot less present in the game's fear factor. Maybe you could have at least seen their eyes. They do light up. Another issue with the light blocking thing is that the lights, after you've closed the door, are basically useless. As you can see on both sides, the side window looks basically the same with the light on, regardless of whether there is an animatronic there or not. So on harder nights, where the animatronics are moving quicker, I'm not sure how you're supposed to see if they've left or not without opening the door and running the risk of them taking the chance to invite themselves in, because they can move regardless of the cameras are up or not. or just going on a scavenger hunt in the cameras for them and wasting power and time. For clarification, in the original game, Chica would just straight up be in the right window if she was at the door, and Bonnie would cast a shadow in the left window that otherwise wouldn't be there if he wasn't. Also, at this point in writing, I just realized the sound for them first appearing was completely removed. I'm not sure how to feel about it, honestly, because it doesn't serve much of a practical purpose, so I guess we can live without it, but it's just something trademark about the original that I noticed a lack of. Its absence does require you to actually pay attention, though. The game's core mechanics do not change when entering Night 2. Before going over to Night 2, there is a cutscene rendered to mimic a camcorder video, like found footage. And let me be totally honest with you, I thought it was ridiculous. Due to a combination of factors, like the dialogue, the reactions of the guy recording, I'll be more specific in a second. I'll play it out and kinda pause in between to comment on stuff.
Oh, Jesus, this thing is there. Oh my God. Okay. Look at this. I needed a gig, right? I gotta get my money up. I gotta take care of responsibilities, right? I don't like doing nights, but it's all I can get. It doesn't pay well, but hey, I'm just watching some big fluffy robot. What could go wrong, right?
Sorry, I know that was quick. As a chronic talk-to-myselfer, I can't say I've ever been this animated about it. Besides that though, why exactly is he recording his CRT? So he has the footage off the security cameras, but I guess it's not modern enough times for him to be able to add commentary in post? I think the year is 2003, I have no idea if we had commercially available editing software for that at that point. Also, I think this is just supposed to be a quick tape to send to police as evidence, so it doesn't need to be professionally put together. So this point of criticism is dumb. And I'll know, personally I would have just said fuck the time period and edited it like a video, but I get that the analog horror stuff is popular.
I'm like you. I didn't believe in all the, controversy. Look at this. Okay, I started the recording at... There! See it? He moved! The phasing, the bunny, his ear totally moved!
I hate to say it, but if I were the police, I would not take that too seriously. Residual charge, didn't finish airing down for the night correctly, blah blah, although I think it'd be a little more convincing as unusual activity if it weren't such a sudden snap movement. I had to frame by frame advance to even see what Bonnie did. He's really gonna... Why is he self-censoring like this? He's not trying to kiss up to the company by using, approved swears, is he? I think the minute I heard him say phasing entirely seriously, I was not able to take any of this seriously. Hold on, there's an even better instance of this in a bit that absolutely killed me.
But that's not all. I thought that was just some endo servers acting up from some leftover power, but no. Oh my God, what?
Why is he freaking out here? He knows what's on this footage. He was there.
I wasn't crazy. Oh my God. Holy fastballs. Stupid chicken. Literally
I told you! Holy fastballs? Are you actually serious? I started giggling again while scripting this. Oh my God. Calm down, dude. You tossing the camera around is not helping the police see anything that's going on.
God, you're probably thinking oh, come on, Donovan. It's no big deal. Bonnie's ears twitch and the camera glitch on Chica's wrong. Because, in a couple of seconds, something big happens. This is insane. Look at that crazy son of a... Her waist! Why did she... Oh my God! She freaking turned her dang stomach all around, counterclockwise. Spun her head everywhere, and then look at this! She just waltzes right into the hall. And right here, I put down the tablet thing.
I like how even Chica is dude, chill.
Okay, so right here, I think I'm debating because she's still walking, it's 5 a.m. I don't know what to do because the phone guy was saying stuff about how the doors cost power. She doesn't make any sense. And so I'm close the doors, Donovan, close them! Ah!
You did close them, Donovan. Elsewise, how the hell would you still be here?
We're down. Stupid pizza robots. What is that?
The game's core mechanics do not change when entering Night 2. However, as you may be expecting, a new face is entering the lineup of threats. Foxy the Pirate. You know the deal with him, I bet, except this time it's much more literal than it was in the original. The original implies that the way to deal with Foxy is to look directly at his camera from time to time, which makes him stop moving and therefore progressing towards you. But something many people, including myself, never realized was that Phone Guy did not mean you had to look specifically at Foxy to stop him. He only said that he becomes more active if the cameras remain off.
The character in there seems unique in that he becomes more active if the cameras remain off for long periods of time. I guess he doesn't like being watched. I don't know.
Which literally means looking at any camera, as long as you use the cameras sometimes, works to stop Foxy. Real Time takes this misconception and makes it reality. You have to look specifically at Foxy to stop him. Just using the cameras in general isn't gonna work. Just like his original appearance, he has 4 phases, with the last meaning he started running to your office. Unlike his original appearance, he can run down either the left or right hall, where before he was restricted to the left. You gotta check the cameras to tell which side he's picked. He doesn't run immediately on leaving the cove, he just needs a minute to get down to the hall. I think you're meant to close the door when you hear his footsteps, not as soon as he leaves the cove, because obviously you don't know which door to shut yet. Sometimes when he first leaves the cove, he will sing, but it isn't guaranteed. It's kind of just a lucky cue you can get that might poke you and make you realize, oh, Foxy left, time to worry about that. Before continuing on to the next night, which is a bit of a special one, I want to briefly call attention to the jump scares. They are vastly improved from the original game and reflect each animatronic's unique movement style from how they are animated on the cameras. I'm quoting some of this directly from the official wiki for clarification. Due to fluid animatronic movements being the main gimmick of the game, according to Tarin on Reddit, each animatronic was given a distinct movement style when roaming on the cameras. Bonnie appears to move with slow, fluid motions. This is contrasted by his jump scare, which references his appearance in the first trailer for FNAF, where he pulled the top of his face off to reveal his metal skull. He actually does this as a sort of main personality gimmick multiple times in Real Time, including on the main menu where his skull can briefly be seen under his transparent face. Chica alternates between periods of complete stillness and jerky, floppy movements. Her jump scare reflects her odd decision to become a helicopter, and so does her appearance in the main menu. You know that overused joke about identifying as an attack helicopter? Well, someone seems to be taking it literally. Not sure why they'd design a children's animatronic to be able to rotate its head 360 degrees. You know, they actually took away Helicopter Chica when the game released, as she was present in the demo but absent from the first full patch. I guess they thought it was too silly, but they put it back in the current patch probably because it made people sad to see it go. Freddy. I'm not talking about him. He's hibernating. He can wait his turn. Finally, Foxy was animated with curiosity and aggression in mind for his movements. He shows a lot of personality in both of his jump scares and his camera movements, straight up giving you the Dwayne Johnson stare in one of his jump scares alongside purposefully hiding his face in the darkness on returning to Pirate's Cove after a failed run, baring his teeth at you before slinking back into the shadows. I also love how he does a walk of shame away from your office after failing to get in. The night is supposed to be some crazy fight between you and FNAF's favorite sexy man, Foxy. It starts off with a phone call meant to officially introduce Foxy to the game's villain roundup, as he wasn't introduced before, despite silently activating on night 2. But as the phone guy says, it's not gonna be like before. This night takes Foxy's usual behavior and throws it out the window, but perhaps not in the most thought out way. Now, I'm gonna go over this night first, how it's intended to be played, because I absolutely ruined it on my playthrough. A good amount of this is taken from the fandom wiki, as it has the developers contributing to it. And because I couldn't really get Foxy to actually do what it says he does, nor could I discern a pattern in his actions. Also, did you know Foxy no longer takes power when he hits your door? Probably mainly because of this boss fight. That would be really unfair. Foxy is the only threat for most of this night. At the start, regardless of whether you're watching him or not, he'll leave the cove and run down the west hall to your left. If this fails to get you, he won't return, instead trying the same thing again. At random, he'll make turns out of either the west or east hall to come down the opposite side, to try and catch you off guard after you've already closed the other door in anticipation. Eventually, Foxy just starts walking around and down the halls towards your office, refusing to return to the cove at any point. At some point in the night, the cameras become unusable. Around halfway through the night, Foxy goes nuts and starts bolting around the location like an orange cat at 3 a.m. I guess 3 a.m. is technically halfway through the night, so accurate comparison? Further into this manic state, a red hue covers your screen and Foxy will begin to move to your door extremely quickly. Since the cameras are unreachable and he no longer makes obvious sound cues, how are you meant to tell where he will be? His glowing eyes will slide into the view of the door he's at, so visual cues are the way to go for this night. Lights are not applicable, they're actually completely disabled the entire time. So I said before I was gonna go over the intended strategy before I revealed how I totally ruined it. The phone guy and the game both strictly warn you that closing both doors is a horrible idea. The phone guy just says it, and if you do actually do this, the game will play a loud alarm sound until you open at least one back up. Keyword being one. The power drain for a single closed door is about the same as usual, so honestly what I ended up doing is just waiting for him to appear at a door, closing that door when he did, and then leaving it closed until he showed up at the other one, then closing that one and opening the previously closed one. Sure, you briefly get the game crying for you to open a door, but it can cry all at once. I never once had to watch Foxy on the cameras, and my first time through I didn't even notice them getting disabled partway through the fight. I won by extreme cheese, and I don't know, it feels like I shouldn't have been able to do that. There is a minor other problem at 5 a.m. when the cameras are given back to you alongside the reveal that all other animatronics, this includes Freddy, have activated at what is apparently their maximum difficulty. So then you have to mind them. But being totally real with you, I legitimately thought the first time around that them walking off was a hallucination meant to scare you because they did not show up at my door even once during that last hour, nor did I manage to find any of them on the cameras because I just sat there waiting for Foxy. Max difficulty would have me thinking that just me staring at one side of the office all the time would allow someone to waltz in through the other side, but maybe they're just not that fast on Max AI. To give this night some credit, because I've just kind of been harping on it, the music here is really good. The beat also drops about right when Foxy starts sprinting all over the place and you lose connection to the phone guy, which is a nice touch.
The person you're trying to reach is no longer in service.
A boss fight isn't a boss fight without music that gets you feeling tough, in my opinion. Survive Night 3 to reach Night 4, of course, which returns to the usual formula, with Foxy no longer hyped up on substances or whatever. Usual formula plus Freddy Fazbear, who until now hasn't been a problem. And plus several other new things the original game does not feature, such as the kitchen camera and 2 other random cameras that are really only used for Easter eggs. I'm not even sure the animatronics can go in these, so eventually I just stopped bothering to check. Because checking puts you at risk for another new and honestly very annoying mechanic, something I like to call the cam switch gimmick. Every time you check a camera, there is a chance you will be subjected to a cheap jump scare by any of the animatronics, including the cupcake, and that camera will swap to the position of the last camera you checked. For example, if you checked camera 4A and then you check camera 8 and get jumped, for the rest of the night you will have to access cam 8 from the spot cam 4A used to be in. This just feels kind of unnecessary to me, like the night wasn't hard enough with the normal mechanics in place, so they had to add something to make it more irritating. I do not at all enjoy getting randomly screamed at when I do something that is very normal to do when dealing with an animatronic I have to cam stall, aka Freddy. It's almost like I'm being discouraged from looking at the cameras to see the main gimmick of the game, which is the full motion of the animatronics. I was pretty demotivated to beat Night 4 because every time I thought of trying again after quitting for a bit, I remembered, oh yeah, I have to deal with this, and I didn't want to bother. Maybe this is nitpicking, but I feel like it's a cheap way to increase difficulty, especially if there isn't any way to tell when it's coming or to prevent it from happening. Every other FNAF-like game I've played that introduced something like this usually used it as some sort of punishment for not doing something or trying to cheese the game. I should give an example of this. In FNAF 3, when you stay in the cameras too much, you get punished by a Phantom Foxy jump scare. Annoying, yes, but entirely preventable. I prefer when I can prevent the annoyance from occurring, and if it does occur, it is my own fault and I can own up to that. Enough harping on the camera thing. Night 4 and 5 are pretty similar mechanics-wise, as they both feature Freddy, who works about the same as he does in the original FNAF. You can stop him from moving if you stare at him. However, it felt kind of finicky in real time. Often it seemed like I'd be staring at him and then he'd just kind of leave anyway. And when he does leave, he takes like 4 business days to get where he's going because he's got to do his little walk on over there, so you can't really stall him until he's made it over to where he wants to be. That's one problem I've got with the real-time movement stuff through pretty much the whole game. It's most prevalent with Freddy, but with others like Bonnie and Chica, they actually have to move over to where they're supposed to be before you can tell that they're there and act accordingly, and it's somewhat annoying to have to wait for them during the tense period where you know they left, but you don't know where they are and where they're gonna end up. But again, it really only matters with Freddy since he does not appear in your door when he's there, and watching his camera is so important. With the other two, you can just check lights and it's fine. Who cares where they are in the building if they're not at the door? For all I care, Bonnie could be jorking it in the back room at 2 a.m. It's none of my business. Pardon my Faz French.
Better put your headphones in for this one.
The optimal strategy to beat these last 2 nights is to steadily alternate between watching Freddy, watching Foxy, and checking the lights. It is not important to know where anyone but Freddy is, but if you let Freddy get out of the dining area, that's not great because he will likely immediately head off to one of the halls. If you don't know this, you'll probably go searching for him like you have to do in the original game. Problem with that is of course the cam switch gimmick, which has a chance to occur every camera you check, so if you get unlucky, you have the chance to royally screw up the layout if you can't find Freddy quickly. I said likely will head off to a hallway. This is because he is not guaranteed to do that. I've found him in the restrooms and the kitchen. Unlike the original Freddy though, this Freddy can actually leave the corner outside your office. If he's blocked when he gets there, I've had him turn around and head back to the dining area, which is great because he's easiest to track in there as he has 2 faces. One has him sitting in the corner, the other has him about halfway across the stretch of tables. Usually if I know he's in there and I hear his laugh, which means he's moved, I know where to go look for him because he won't have gotten done in there yet. His 2 phases in there are especially useful during some of the challenge nights where you can't easily keep track of him. One disables camera usage completely, so I had to rely on counting his laughs to know where he'd progressed to. Knowing 2 laughs are in the same place lessens the anxiety a little. On completing night 4, we get a minigame where we are playing as Brother, marking the heavily marketed character's first unavoidable in-game appearance outside the intro cutscene. I say unavoidable because sometimes when you run out of power, he'll be the one jumping you instead of Freddy. Brother's goal here is to find a bunch of papers, which are in a clump on the side of the show stage. On collecting these, we have to go hang them up in 9 places marked by arrows. Afterwards, our objective is to leave, but when going to do so, Brother finds the building's doors wide open and questions why that is before the minigame ends abruptly. For a moment, before we get to night 5, which is mostly the same as night 4 plus more aggressive AI, might we talk about this Brother character a bit? Like, I'm looking at the fandom wiki and there's all this stuff, but where were you planning on actually telling us this interesting stuff about this interesting character? Exclusively in outside media like YouTube video ARG stuff? When I play games, I don't expect to have to go reading other stuff to get the whole story. It's like Balan Wonderworld, which was criticized for keeping literally all of its deeper story confined within a novel that was sold separately. A novel I liked, but it was a stupid idea nonetheless. I'd kill to see some of the cool ideas explored within the book actually animated in that beautiful style they used in-game. Like the first Balan becoming corrupted by negativity and becoming Lance, then creating another Balan to replace himself, accepting his fate as the villain of the story. Show me that in the game I've been spending hours on! Alright, I'll shut up about Balan now. Hey, I'ma be honest, I think a lot of the showing not telling was taken out of the most recent patch, cause I'm using this video of all cutscenes by Dark Tourist to rewatch ones like the Holy Fazballs one, and I legitimately did not see half of these in-game despite getting all the way to night 5. Like, for example, I did not see this one with Brother and Mike. It just cut right to the view of the window with Mike talking. It's in my footage like that. Here, I promise I'm not crazy. Not more than normal, but if I'm right about it getting removed, probably for how long these pre-rendered scenes can be, then I guess my point stands about wanting to see this stuff rather than just having it explained on an external wiki. These are cool cutscenes! Anyway, not much is known about Brother, but he shares a brotherly bond with the animatronics, duh, and is trying to help them achieve a proper resolution to their troubled existence. According to him, he was previously human, dying in 1987 and going on to possess whatever it is this is. My running theory is it's got something to do with the paper pals you see on the walls in places like the FNAF 2 location, mostly because of the paper plate he has for a face. Leading into Night 5, we're gonna return to that intro cutscene for a bit. So Donovan, the guy you play as, was caught by William Afton. You find this out when you beat Night 6 in a minigame where you play as a duck. So when you went to report the evidence, you know, that didn't go so well, probably. If you were wondering how all that happened. Donovan is commonly represented by a duck when his story beats are explored. Because Donovan was trying to report the freaky animatronic behavior to the police, Afton took care of him and stuffed him into an unused suit the location had, one previously used at Chica's Party World for the Funtime Chica character. You'll notice that the faceplate you're looking out of in this cutscene has seams lining up with a typical Funtime series animatronic, with the shape of a beak on the bottom part. Donovan yelling at Brother from his new possessed body is him misinterpreting Brother as being the one behind the missing kids. Bonnie and Chica, shortly after, dismantle him for being a dick. He then ends up behind the pizzeria, presumably left to rot. You can see this on the minimap. Oh yeah, it's been a while since I brought up the minimap. Mostly because it kinda takes a backseat to like everything else, and I never really saw the point of it. In order to play new nights, you must first purchase them from the minimap by visiting their associated room. While there, you'll be antagonized by the 4 main animatronics and can die to any of them, but since it just takes you back to the menu, it's nothing more than a nuisance. Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica are outrunnable, but Foxy is not, moving at a pace slightly faster than your own. However, he and the others will not pursue you into already purchased areas or if you are in lit areas. When buying Night 2, you'll get a flashlight, and you can tell if you're in a lit area if the flashlight is not on. It's odd to require nights to be purchased, but I guess it's to force the player to come here because the minimap is primarily used for story purposes, and if you never visited, you would never see any of that. For example, you can collect Brother's papers from here, you can find Donovan behind the location, you discover that Donovan is dead after some night because of the minimap. How? Well, after whatever night it is, pretty sure it's Night 5, none of the animatronics will attack you on the minimap anymore, because you're not Donovan, you're Michael Afton, who has returned to the location after a long absence, having previously convinced the animatronics during his initial tenure working at the pizzeria that he is not a threat to them. Why am I confused about which night removed the animatronics' aggression? Well, in my copy, they started leaving me alone after I beat Night 4, but I was watching other people play the full release, like Spiff again, and they were still getting chased around while going to play and buy Night 5. My copy might be bugged because it certainly doesn't think I beat Night 5. You're supposed to get a cutscene that shows Michael breaking into the place. I didn't realize Michael became the main playable character at first because a cool feature that you get when you buy Night 4 is the Fazbear Entertainment Console, and that allows you to change how you appear on the minimap. And I set myself to be Bonnie, who prior to popular belief is my actual favorite classic animatronic instead of Foxy, despite my character being a fox, and the fact that my grandma's favorite classic was Foxy. Normally, if you don't mess it up by switching avatars after whatever night it is to represent the switch, you would see Michael replacing Donovan on the minimap. If your game is working right anyway. Real Time does require you to have the original FNAF owned on Steam to play it, but I don't think it's taking its save data. Or is it? I mean, I did beat the original. But then why wouldn't it have started off in this state if it saw that I had cleared Night 5 in the original? This theory has no legs. I don't know what happened. Maybe the animatronics are actually fans of mine and have just now realized who they were trying to kill? I suppose I can forgive you. Just don't let it happen again. Also, can I have $3 for the vending machine? I want a Dr. Pepper. Something else interesting about the minimap is it seems to only use the animatronics that will be a threat on the next night you'll be playing. To clarify, I didn't see Freddy running around until I was heading into Night 4. Foxy shared a similar absence until I was heading into Night 2. I guess if you're unsure of what threats will be present on the next night, this is a decent indicator. Also, when you've unlocked Night 6, you'll see the Easter egg animatronics that appear on that night walking around sometimes. Featured faces include Sparky the dog, a popular hoax character from the original FNAF, and Donovan Duck, aka the animatronic that Donovan became. He has a 50% chance to jump scare you when you lose in Night 6. I shall briefly cover the available challenges in the minimap. These are how you earn money to get into the other areas, like the safe room and stuff. Or you could just suffer through 6-hour mode and get $1 billion freaking dollars and be set, but I don't want to. So each challenge is relatively short, about 3 minutes long with an accelerated power drain and hour passage, but they're still kinda tricky. A cool aspect of these is some feature a phone call from a well-known YouTuber. The first is Bullies, featuring only Bonnie and Chica, so it's basically Tap the Light simulator. Fusion Z Gamer handles the call for this one. You know what to do, but boy are these two animatronics fast to come on in. The strategy may be pretty simple, but boy is it tedious, so I'm not exactly inclined to spend hours on hours pressing light buttons like I'm employee 427. I guess one critique I have specifically for the challenges is you have to walk yourself all the way over to the employee console to try again after you lose. There isn't a quick way to restart. Challenge 2 is Don't Look at Me, starring Freddy and Foxy. I have no idea who is handling the call for this one. Here we just gotta flick between cams and give these two a good staring. Challenge 3 is Nightmare, starring everybody. The gimmick here is this red flashing and alarm sound that distracts you and makes it a bit annoying to see. Otherwise, everybody's just moving faster than normal. Same thing with Challenge 4, Power Surge. Everybody is fast, and also 8-Bit Ryan calls you an idiot, except this time you can't look at the cameras. So that is a problem when it comes to Freddy and Foxy. For the former, I just tried to remember his path and counted his laughs. And for Foxy, pay attention to what side his running sound is panned to, because obviously he's gonna be running because you can't watch him. Okay, so that's about all the gameplay I think is necessary to cover to get through what I wanted to say about this game. Overall, I think it's a good showing, but I do have some additional points to make, so I'm gonna do that now. 1. Now, this is a personal opinion, but I feel like using videos for the animatronic animations was a cop-out. I mean, it's not helping the game, it's the reason it can't run on every system. It takes too much RAM. I think my poor little HP travel laptop would actually explode if I tried to run this on it, while if it was using models, I think it'd just be really choppy. Because you'd have to do this when using ClickTeam, but since the game was switched to Unity, I guess they didn't want to throw all the videos out. Quick question, theoretically, could you change the videos out to other stuff like you can do in stuff like Poppy Playtime? I have some very stupid ideas. A far more optimized way to handle real-time animatronic movement would be having a pizzeria map far away from the player, with a bunch of cameras set up in there. And then you could have the animatronics just walk around in there. The cameras would just be watching them move around that map. Doing it this way would make it easier to change scenery or behavior without having to re-render every video taking place in a certain spot, and it would probably make programming the animatronics AI easier, as well as making it easier to tell exactly where they are at a given time as a developer. I'm not talking out of my fastballs here, I promise. Unrigged was using Unity, so I get how a 3D environment with enemies works on a base level. I say was because we're switching to Unreal, and that's kind of why development hit a slow point, but it should help smoothen stuff out in the long run. I felt like I should say something about that real quick because I see comments asking about the game and then I go try and find them, and for some reason I can't because the YouTube comment search feature just does not work for some reason. Back on topic. Why was this game so readily hated when it came out? I have some theories and not without receipts. People just really jumped on whatever they didn't 100% like about it and treated those things as cardinal sins. And you know what? I think it's because people had previous issues with the developers and with some mismanagement. Issues which have, in the majority, been addressed. The project was started all the way back when Tarin was 17. You don't make the most amazing managerial decisions when you're still a teen. You're just excited to make an idea and you jump into making decisions that might not be the best in the long term because you saw somebody else do it and you thought it was cool. Then later, it's years down the line and it's been too long, you just want to get the thing out and you've got to crack down on yourself and your scope creep, and that results in some stuff maybe getting cut and people becoming unhappy or ending up rushed for progress. The problem is the internet is not very forgiving. They want what they are promised, and personal issues be damned. If you don't deliver, you are getting Faz crucified. Who cares if the game's free? This game does have a slightly more pressing issue that probably wasn't taken into account when it was started. Remaking FNAF 1 isn't exactly legal or something Scott approves of, even if you require the player to own FNAF 1 one in order to play. He himself has said as much, actually. While it isn't in his best interest to spend hours all the time taking down remakes, big players like Real Time and stuff like FNAF Plus do and did run the real risk of being removed via legal takedown and don't really abide by the wishes of the franchise creator. I don't have a crazy strong opinion on this. If I were the creator of FNAF, I wouldn't have much of an issue with remakes if they required the original to be purchased, which these do. I just wanted to warn potential game creators about a semi-obscure fact. But it's an interesting thing to mention, I think, because he said this 5 years ago and a lot of people don't know he did. I didn't know he did until Fizznom mentioned it during the heat of everybody ripping Real Time a new one, and the Twitter algorithm decided that, for once, I get to see a post from someone I follow. Crazy, right? Overall, I think that Real Time is impressive for what it is and is not at all a bad game, just a game with bad decisions made behind it. I wouldn't discourage people from playing it at all, I just encourage the people behind it to be more careful with tackling huge projects without a proper game plan or roadmap. It's not like I'm not guilty of this. I get how it feels to hyperfixate on something and go hard on it before realizing that maybe you're not going to be able to see it through. It hurts, and I really don't want to see that happen to Real Time Studios' other projects. I have heard concerning things about the game mentioned way far back, Pinata Puppy World, about how it's possibly kind of money motivated. And I get getting excited about the possibility of making your passion your job via lucrative funding if you were just seeing how wildly successful Indigo Park's fundraiser was, but just keep in mind that people aren't going to just keep blindly funding projects before any of them come out. Just having the mascot horror gimmick shoved onto something isn't gonna sell it. I actually have a good example of this I saw that I was gonna make a video on before Zoocosis dropped on me from the heavens because I totally wasn't paying attention when the release date got announced, and I decided to prioritize a video on that instead. Plus I got really freaking sick. The game in question was one called Civi's Factory. It was made by these dudes who only had a track record of making a multiplayer skippity toilet game, and the Kickstarter was literally a carbon copy of Indigo Park's. I think it was just trying to ride the coattails of Indigo Park with the mascot horror genre's popularity. They did not promote this Kickstarter at all. Even during researching the game, I joined the developers' Discord server, and they refused to talk about it, instead aggressively promoting the skippity toilet game. Meanwhile, I really thought that Civi's Factory was kind of a solid concept when I played it. The animations are really good, and I really liked the concept. With more polish, it could be a cult classic, and you know what? I can't say you shouldn't check it out, though the gameplay is a bit lacking. It's a pity that $55 isn't enough for a chapter 2. I think this review, seemingly written by a caveman, sums up my thoughts on it. I really like that clock robot. Don't look at me. Before we close off, a little apology for this video not coming out when I said it would like 2 times. So the past few weeks have been interesting and miserable. Been having some very intense back pain and migraines and also constant throwing up that we hadn't really been able to figure out the initial cause of.
It turns out that it may have been earwax shoved really far back in my ear that was causing all the vertigo and...
Now, with that being said, this has been Glamrock Dusky, and remember, have a phasorific day!